Welcome to another episode of Career in Progress, a podcast about building the skills that build your career. In this episode, I am thrilled to have an insightful conversation with an AI guru, a host of a very insightful and popular podcast, a seasoned leader, Arun Trivedi. We'll dive into AI trends, the skill sets and mindsets, and practical ideas you can use right now to grow in this AI fast paced era. So, whether you're curious about AI, leading yourself or your teams through change, or exploring where the industry is headed, this episode is for you. So, with no further ado, here's Arun Trivedi. Arun, welcome to Career in Progress, a podcast about building the skills that build your career. I am so excited to have this conversation with you about AI and leadership and skills today. And I'm so excited to learn from you.
Thank you, Purnima. It's my pleasure to be on the show.
First of all, Arun, a huge congratulations to you on your amazing, insightful, and multifaceted and fun podcast, AI with Arun Show, of which, of course, I'm a huge fan. You have close to 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and your show is streaming on Spotify and Apple Podcast. What an incredible milestone, Arun. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Purnima. I can tell you the journey has been exceptionally hard along with the work, but I'm very grateful to all the guests who came on the show and for all the people who watch the show and learn from the show and subscribe to the show. So thank you.
I can absolutely, endorse that the journey was not easy, but I think the insights you bring in, the conversations you have are so incredible and so valuable that people like me, I can say, really learn from it. So to all the listeners, do subscribe to AI with Arun for insightful information and AI trends. And I'm sure you'll learn so much.
I would just underline what you said, to your viewers, that please do like and share and subscribe Purnima show as well and my show as well.
Thank you. That's very generous. Thank you. You know, Arun, this conversation has been on my mind. You have had so many amazing conversations and interviews on your podcast, and while I'm really excited for this conversation, there's a tingle bit of nervousness. There's a little bit of nervousness that it's like having a conversation with a master himself. So just putting that in the back of my mind, let's dive in here. Um, Arun, you've had, like we said, so many conversations with top founders and leaders exploring how AI is reshaping business and society. Over the past decades, we've seen remarkable technological evolutions. But what makes AI transformative truly unique? Why is it capturing so much attention today, and why are we talking about it so much?
You are so right, Purnima. If you look at the evolution, right from the industrial evolution, or even before that, the agricultural revolution. I mean, first is all machines, right? If what does a human really comprise of? The human comprise of a physical form, which is where the physical health comes from. But more importantly, it's the mental health, which is what is more important, and that's what controls people. You would see, in olden days, there would be kings and who would not be physically strong themselves, but because they are a king, they have the power of the mind. They would control other people. So far, the revolution was focused more on the physical form part of it, which is where the industrial revolution came in. But this is really different. This we are talking about, brains, human brains being replicated in some form or shape, which is what the intelligence of the AI comes in, and that's why it's so incredibly powerful. It's doing stuff that people had not even imagined that it could do. Think about it for a minute, right? You ask a question to, let's say, Perplexity or a ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever your favorite tool could be, but answers questions for you. It looks at the entire web for you and answers questions. So this thing is incredibly powerful. And we as a human race, we have never seen something like this. And because we have never seen something like this, something that can actually work the way the human mind works, which is why it's incredibly powerful. And that's why we got to talk about it.
Yeah, I love the way you talked about the human mind. And I think in my own journey, I'll say I see AI not just as a technology, but a strategic amplifier of human potential, right? And I've been actually off late calling it augment I instead of artificial intelligence, because I think it's actually augmenting my intelligence, my creativity, my decision making, and so on and so forth. I love what you said. Arun, you've seen this evolution for the past few years. What is the excitement for the next phase of it?
The way I say it, Purnima, is actually threefold.
Mm,
Right. One is where we see it today, which is, there are certain, well, actually many kind of jobs which require some data analytics, some intelligence, and that's where we are seeing a lot of the layoffs and other things that slight make us nervous. But what I'm more excited about the phase two and phase three part of it. So what is phase two?
mm,
Eventually, I believe that there will be a lot of abundance on the earth. When I say
mm,
abundance, it means that, if you look at many parts of the world today, we see a lack of education, we see a poverty, right? So there is or lack of abundance in many places, or healthcare, right? And those are things that very common people, seem to be deprived of. Now, with the help of AI, these are the problems that we could actually solve. Can we solve it tomorrow? Maybe not, but maybe in the next 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we should be able to solve it. So it's almost looking like we're able to solve those kinds of problems, which have really, pained humans for a very long time, which is about healthcare, about education, about poverty. And then the next one is bringing abundance back to the earth. What do you mean by
mm,
that? There's a lot of mining and other non-green operation that we do on the earth. Is it possible for us to do the same thing on other planets, or
mm,
outside our planetary system, and let the earth be beautiful and green and all the good stuff that it used to be before, right? Can we do that and bring those energy or bring those forms of whatever power you want to call it, right? For example, green energy, or for example, whatever oil and gas does with that power. Can we bring that, or rare earth minerals? Can we bring it from other planets or
mm.
other parts of the solar system back to Earth, and use them in a way the way we use them on Earth, without depriving the Earth of these natural resources? And that to me is phase three. So those are the two which are most. I'm personally very excited about. Yes, it's a long time in the future, but those are the things that I'm excited about. So I would say that people are seeing the here and now, which is job replacements. But if we move beyond that, there are many more things, the phase two and phase three, which is where the true potential of AI would be.
I love the positivity you're bringing into this conversation because, just a couple of days ago, I was talking to somebody of younger generation and we talked deeply about the impact of AI and climate change, right? And that's something, we are seeing, acknowledging, but I'm not sure we are yet as mindful as we should be. So I'm really thrilled to hear about the second and third phase you talked about. I think for the second phase, I read this book and I'm sure you've seen this too. It's called Brave New Words: How AI Will Revolutionize Education and Why That's Good. It's an awe inspiring book by educator Salman Khan, who founded the Khan Academy, really democratizing education to the very problems you stated, right? Bringing in equity. So are there any such developments that you are particularly really fascinated and keeping a tab on right now?
Yeah, so particularly in healthcare and education, those are two things that I feel are very close to humanity, and
Mm,
that's where we see a lot of gaps, right? Along with that, so those are two things that I'm particularly very curious to see where the world goes. I did a podcast recently on the AI with Arun Show where we spoke about an AI agent hospital in China, and
mm,
that to me was mind blowing. So what they have is, it is all AI agents. So that's how they're simulating the data and getting all the AI agents, the AI nurses, the AI hospitals, the hospital staff trained. And that is something that, once it becomes successful and fully trained, you deploy it in a very remote part of the world where there are no
wow.
doctors, no nurses, or maybe hundreds of miles or kilometers away from those locations. And if that model is successful, imagine what it can do to healthcare. Imagine what it can do to education. All right, similar models like that when where there are no good teachers. We all
Mm,
see those memes on Instagram and others, right? Where a teacher is trying to teach the spelling of apple and she's spelling it herself wrong, right? Now, those things would be completely alleviated thanks to these technologies. You could have the best of teachers, them being replicated, their teaching standards and mechanism being replicated in an AR, VR type of a format or mixed reality type of a format, and
mhm.
delivered to the remotest of the students in the language of their choice, and customized and tailor made for them for their learning experience. So those are kind of things that really make me excited about, and I think the future is really beautiful.
I think you and I talked about, the personalization and the excitement in personalization of learning, and it could be any other human experience too. I think you bring up such a good point. Look, there is the excitement about AI, but in the real world, I'll just say there's also skepticism. Right. In addition to being a compelling podcaster, you're also a transformative leader and the vice president at Tech Mahindra overseeing software platform business and in the North America region. What do you see are the key skills that leaders need to have to successfully actually build this transformation, and how do they take the skeptics the excited in this journey with them? What are some of the skills that the leaders really need to closely focus on as they foster a culture of AI embraced versus AI feared?
Sure. So we are calling it as an AI first leadership. What this means is that at the leadership level, if you see the way organizations are structured, the younger most people who are fresh out of campus, they probably know more AI than the CEO of the company. And that may not always be true, but in many cases that is true. Because the way these things are structured, younger
Mhm.
people are learning about AI, they are experimenting with AI. Whereas when they go to the company, they find that if something has a domain name of .ai, it's not allowed, or they don't have access to the system from their office
Yeah.
computers or laptops.
Yeah.
But having said that, the leaders are the people who can actually influence policies and decision making in their companies. They need to be, first of all, aware of what AI truly is and the transformative power of the AI without being scared of, this is going to take away jobs and things of that nature. So that is number one, that AI literacy, that AI awareness has to be there. The second thing I would say is there's a lot of human values that are more important now in the world of AI. And why do I say
Mhm.
that?
Mm.
If you talk to an LLM today, every query that you say, there's a lot of energy that's consumed. Google recently published something that for every query, I think there is certain 5 drops of water that goes in and certain
Yeah.
electricity that goes in, right? So there is a green impact based on every query. So people will gradually stop saying thank you and hello and welcome to LLMs, right? Because that's the way people will interact. And if that translates into real human beings in human interaction, that's not a good thing, right? When you and I talk, we absolutely have to say all those things, right? But those are the human values. We can't be replicating our behavior with agents to fellow humans. So I think those human values are front and center in everything that we do.
Mm.
And then the third thing I would say is extremely important is the first principles problem solving. And what I mean by that is, historically, whenever we come across a problem, right, we try to look in our minds of where have I solved it before. We try to find examples of, this is exactly what this situation looked like. This is how I acted in those situations. So maybe I need to do something similar now. Right. But having said that, if you're able to deconstruct a problem into its most fundamental level,
Mm.
solve it, and then construct it back so that the overall problem now it looks like one jigsaw puzzle that has been solved. So that's the first principles problem solving. If we're able to, have more of our leaders do that, and more of the, young people who are coming out into the workforce, or even, in education system, that I think will be a very good stepping stone towards succeeding in the AI world. Because look, it's
I
like this: anything that can be solved with an LLM or AI, it will be solved. Right. So where humans will come in is problems that have not been solved before. Right. And that will require first principle problem solving skills.
Let's double click into that first principles problem solving, right? Uh, can you give me an example of where you are seeing that come to life? Because I think there's so much power in it. So, as a leader, can we give them a couple of skills to say, hey, here is an example of where we can use a LLM? Here's an example of how we deconstruct this problem. And here is an example of how you bring an AI approach to life.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take an example from an AI world, right? So in many cases, when we see customers, companies implement AI, they find that the answer that's provided by the agent, by the AI agent, are not right,
Mm.
right? And then we say, oh, this is either the data is bad or the LLM is not reaching the right places, right sources, and there are all kinds of technical reasons that are attributed. But if you apply the first principles theorem to this, right? So what does it say? I mean, there are two broad ways of applying the first principles learning, right? One is you ask 5 whys, right? Why,
Mhm.
and every why has an answer, but that helps you go to the bottommost part. So if the answer is not right, why is the answer not right? The answer is not right because the data sources are not right. Why is the data source not right? Because we have been feeding the data sources with incorrect information. Right? Let's say there's a sales example, for example, right? The sales pipeline numbers from the LLM is not right. So if that's not right because the incoming data is not right. Why is incoming data not right? Because the people who actually process the data in their systems, you know, they did not do the best thing. Why did they not do the best thing? Because the IT guy who did it and the sales guy who did it, they work in two independent silos and they don't talk to each other, which is why the data was not right. So if you go back to the most fundamental root cause, you will find that even in those situations when the data is not right, it's because at the most foundational level, the people, the one or two people who actually entered the data in a system, right, they were not talking to each other. And because they were not talking to each other, why were they not talking to each other? Because IT is measured differently, the data team or the business team is measured differently, and there's no incentive for these two guys to talk to each other and work
Right.
together because
Right.
that's not the culture we foster. So that's how this principle actually helps us, and that's a great example. That's true for many companies.
I think everybody listening to it in one or the other company would have for sure encountered it. The five whys that you're talking about really remind me of my kids when they were actually 5 years of age. Right. For anything you say, it goes, why? And that root cause. So, what I heard from you, Arun, is for leadership to drive this transformation, first, AI literacy, understand what it is and what it means in the context of what we are looking to accomplish. Second, understand the human values behind the work and the culture that you are building. And the third, understand the first principles of creating and ask the whys as you problem solve. Did I capture it right?
Absolutely, Purnima.
What would be some of the skills, as you've been seeing so many incredible transformations, right? What are some of the skills that we can say, you know leaders and employees at all levels need to have to really be in this journey and follow the journey of transformation and be comfortable with it? There's the skill set and the mindset. What are some of the things that you've seen when embraced make this journey a more fun ride, a more exciting ride?
Yeah. So apart from all the human skills that I talked about earlier, I think human resilience is actually a pretty good
Mm,
one. The reason is this journey is has a lot of uncertainties. All right, we do not know how technologies would behave. We do not know, how technology transformations would happen. We do not know how people would react to those changes. Right. So there's a lot of uncertainties around it, and the more resilient we are, the better we it is to we can make it fun for everybody, and learn with the process. So have an open mind, be resilient, have what we call the growth mindset, right?
mhm,
And be resilient and make it fun for everybody, particularly for leaders and executives. I would say there is a lot of fear for people who are actually doing the job, thinking that my job
mhm.
is going to be replaced by an AI agent,
Yes.
right? In many cases it's happening. But if you feel that there is of course there are business consideration that determine whether people should be laid off or should not be laid off, right? And every company situation is different. But I think
Mhm,
the key message from a leader has to be that this is going to augment. So this is augmented intelligence, not replacing intelligence, right? Not replacing people, but augmenting people for whatever they're doing. So if you are doing, for example, one of the guests in my show, he said, you are Purnima today. How can you become a better Purnima tomorrow, right?
mhm,
So you're still the same person. Can you do more of these podcasts, right? Or whatever you're doing in your work, in your training, in your learning, professional development, can you do more of that? So
mhm.
productivity and everything else around you, you become a better human,
I,
and that I think
I,
is critical.
I think I love that question, right? Which is, how can you, rather than saying we all need to do this and we all will do it just this way, because these are the tools that we have implemented or these are the tools that we have bought. Ask the employee, how can they be a better version because they know their job the best. I actually like that, going from a one size fits all to really going to a level where you can bring and answer that why in a better way. Right. Are there, times in your journey as a leader that you have had skeptics on your team? And yeah, and let me
Yeah.
even backtrack. Arun, were you ever a skeptic about this?
Yes. I have been a skeptic many times in my life.
Yeah.
From very personal situations to very important things like important projects and things of that nature. But the one thing that I have learned is, just given my own background, is um, that if you have the right will, things just happen on the path, right, to your success. And success could be defined by different things, different people. So for example, if you're a student, getting 100% on a particular subject could be success, but then 80% is also not that bad. If you are a career person, right, oriented towards your career, having 3 promotions in 3 years is great, but having 1 promotion in 3 years is also great. Right. So it's just that the way we sort of have our own expectations,
Mm.
that's what we measure sometimes, and that's how we feel sometimes we're successful, sometimes we are not. But then the intent is to keep doing the right things in your life and your career, and things automatically fall in place.
And is that how you're also managing the AI journey for yourself? Which is, were you ever a skeptic about AI, and how did you transform into a AI enthusiast?
Yeah, so but my AI journey started right quite a couple of years ago, and particularly early last year, I was trying to look for information on how AI is being used by different kinds of organizations for doing various kinds of things for the company, for the communities, for the local societies.
Hmm.
So for solving, I mean, I have been reading that AI can solve the world's hunger problem, but how is it really solving the world's hunger problem, right? So
Yes.
those are things that I wanted to learn. But more importantly, how is AI solving problems here and now? And I found there wasn't much content available on the internet. I was speaking with a few friends, and they said, "Hey, why don't you start something like this?" and would
Right.
come to your show. So that's how we started the AI with Arun show. It was meant to be a fun conversation with some of my friends. So some of the earlier episodes were just with my friends, and this thing became serious. People actually started watching those shows. We saw that, um, and then we started doing more and more of those. And that's what meant. And today it has become a passion. I'm not measuring myself by any criteria. So, for example, I'm not saying that I want to achieve these many subscribers or these many likes, but this particular it just has happened. I am focused on having the right kind of people on the show, having great content, and like I said, everything else will follow.
So the same principles, the same first principles you have for your life and for AI, which is when you want to learn, dive in, keep going, enjoy the journey, continue the journey, and you will learn, and something good will come out of the learning, right? That's what I hear. So I love that approach for everybody who's listening and is still on the fence of, where do I start? Start somewhere and keep, growing from there. What happens to a team member when they are skeptic about this? What does that conversation with a leader like you look like? And how do you motivate them to bring them along with you in this journey, which now is upon us?
Yeah. So, Purima, the beauty of this thing is that do you really have a choice, right? If you think about it, in the AI world, do you really have a choice in your personal life, in your professional life? The answer is no. Like it or not, companies are going to use AI in any form or shape, right? There are companies which will start small, there are companies which will try to do a big bang, they'll probably fail, they'll start again, all right? But the thing is that you really don't have a choice if you're an employee of a certain company, or even if you have your own startup. So with that in mind,
Mm,
uh, what I would suggest is, take something a very small part of your work, right? Just analyze your work, take a small part of your work, and see how can you do it. So, for
yeah.
example, you're into podcasting, right? So, for example, you're doing a lot of the editing. A lot of that editing can be done by AI. You're probably spending some time on doing the editing part, maybe manually. Can you use some AI tool in your own and be more productive? Can you can
Yeah.
you edit 5 videos in a single day versus doing one video in 5 days? And again, I know probably already use a lot of AI, but here's an example, a simple example. If you are working in the, let's say, the finance department, or if you're into hiring, when you are interviewing people, if you're into HR, instead of using, manually reviewing the profiles, can you actually have an AI look at the profile and then,
Mm,
give some kind of a confidence rating for each of the candidates? If you are doing some work manually, can you use some kind of an intelligent system to
mm,
automate your work? So start small. You don't have to, boil the ocean.
yeah.
Once you start small, you start seeing the value, and once people see the value, that's when people feel that yes, this thing works for me, and maybe I can do more of that, and I can become better, I can influence other people. So the idea is, everybody wants to know what is in it for me. right? So there is something for everybody. It helps you becoming more productive. It helps you
Mm,
do more. It helps you,
mm.
just think of things that you have not even thought about before. And those are some of the ways to turn the skeptics around. But there will always be skeptics. I mean, I would be lying to say that there'll never be any skeptics. There'll always be skeptics, and they'll have to see the value before they turn around.
So there's a pro tip from you for all leaders, which is start small, think about what's in it for them, empower your team members to go try something that excites them, create an environment of success and failure at the same time, because sometimes when you try something the first time it doesn't work out. So give the opportunity, create the environment of failure, and value their growth and empower them to grow, because that is when people who are skeptical will start seeing the value and actually coming along the journey by their own will. Is that the right sentiment that I captured from your conversation, Arun?
It is Purnima, and I'll just highlight one thing. So
Sure.
there's a company called ISG One. The president and chief marketing officer, his name is Paul. Paul was on my show, and
Mm,
one of the things he mentioned just stuck with me. He says that a lot of times we hear people say, fail fast, right? So he says, I don't say that to my team members, fail fast,
mm,
and I think that's something that I borrowed from him.
mm,
Instead of saying fail fast, can we say succeed fast? What it means is when
mm,
you succeed, you fail on the way, right? It's like a child trying to learning to walk. It'll fail, thousands of times. It'll fall, it'll stand and fall, right? But then it keeps trying, and eventually it starts walking. So same thing in the enterprise context. We will fail, but the idea is not to fail fast, but the idea is to succeed fast. So you fail multiple times, and leaders have to provide. If you're a leader, you have to provide that environment for your people to understand that yes, if they fail, it's basically because they have made an attempt, which is why they failed. All right, and that's one lesson learned. This path doesn't work, so let's try something else. So there's also learning to be
mm.
to be had from those failures. But then the real intent is succeed fast.
I love the rephrasing there, the positive connotation, which is what is the ultimate goal we are trying to do,
Yeah.
which is actually succeeding. Uh, Arun, is that going to be a title for your book at some point?
This is already taken by Paul, so I just
Okay.
borrowed his phrase. I'm gonna tell him, he'll say, all right, I'll take credit for that.
Well, maybe a book from Paul, but I'm sure there's one more coming down the pike from you too. Arun, this is so fun, and I'm learning so much, from your insight of the AI world, and the incredible journey you've shared from the episodes you had as well. I would love to dive into what I call the rapid fire round. I'll ask you 5 questions. It's supposed to be quickish. I'm not going to put you on a timer, but it's kind of fairly quick to answer. So I know I have not given you any heads up on anything. Here's one more thing I've not given you a heads up on. So here's your first question. If someone's starting their career today, what's the single most valuable skill they should develop, human and technical?
So the human skill, I would say, is curiosity,
Mm.
and the technical skill, I would say, is something around analytics. It could be around data analytics, could be process analytics. So something that helps you analyze whatever you're doing, so that you can get to the bottom of the five whys.
Can you provide a couple of tips for somebody who is starting to build the skill of curiosity? What can they do? Like if I've just, come out of college, I'm looking to go for an, interview, my first job, my internship. What are the ways in which I can demonstrate and build curiosity?
So I would say, when we somebody asks us a question, for example, right, we sort of already have an answer in mind, and the reason why we have an answer in mind is because of the preconditioning that we have had. So I would say, be open. Just listen to the whole question first, right? Or listen to the whole context first before we form answers. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves in a way,
Mm,
right? That do I understand the whole
mm,
context? Am I jumping onto conclusions? Am I jumping onto an answer? Am I jumping onto just trying to see that I understood the question correctly, right? If we keep reminding ourselves, some people are
mm,
generally curious and some people are not. Like I was never curious. So I learned that. I constantly reminded myself that, look, I'm trying to jump the gun here. Let me stop and listen for a second.
mm,
And this is as recent as, I had my kids. My daughters would say something and I would immediately jump onto conclusions. And I had to, actually, my wife, more than me, my wife had to remind me that, hold on, listen to what they're saying. Don't jump onto it. And that's how I have tried to build in curious. Am I there yet? Probably not. I still have a long way to go. But I constantly keep reminding myself that I'm curious. And likewise, anybody at any age, irrespective of whether they're starting their career, whether they're middle aged or older, doesn't really matter. They can be curious at any point of time.
It's incredible how our kids turn up to be our best coaches in life, right? So the skill of curiosity, listen, pause, hear, process, and respond, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's a great tip, Arun. And why is analytics a critical technical skill?
So the reason it's critical, analytics is critical, is if you have that bent of mind, again going with curiosity, it helps you analyze things or understand things in a certain way. All right. When the apple first fell down and Newton saw it, if he did not have the analytical bent of mind, we would never have had the theory of gravitation. And but that's like a big deal in science, right? Even for a small little thing that we do, which are not as transformational as gravitation theory, but all the things that we do, unless you have that power of analytics, you will never be in a position to question people, come up with the right kind of ideas, and just do things slightly differently, which could be more profitable, more beneficial in your personal or your professional life. So that the power of analyzing something or asking those five whys is extremely important.
So no matter what your role in a company, no matter what you do for an organization, develop that technical skills of analysis and asking why, because that is going to help you do what you do better. Right. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's great pro tip in there. So thank you for sharing that. Question 2. If AI were a person, how would you describe its current age and personality? And where do you see it go and grow?
Interesting. If AI were a person, I would think that it would probably be like a teen.
Mm,
I don't want
why
to
so?
reflect on the gender part of it, but I would probably think it would be teen. And the reason is, as teens, and I'm the father of two teens now, so I see it, I live it. As a teen, you're prone to making mistakes, but at the same time, you're also right on many occasions. All right, and AI is like
Mm.
that. AI is still learning. AI is making mistakes. AI is also learning with us. Sometimes it gives the right answers, sometimes it gives wrong answers, but there's still a long way to go. So I would say that AI's personality would be like of a teen.
Like of a teen. And so where do you see it go and where do you see it grow then?
It's certainly maturing in many areas, right? Would we be able to achieve artificial general intelligence? I don't know. There are so many experts or different kinds of opinions. I'm certainly not that kind of an expert to draw that, but we certainly see advances being made in every release, every new release that comes up every couple of months now, or every day, I should say,
Yeah.
right? So the
Yeah.
advances being made. So I would say that in the next several years, it will become a more mature person who has all the intelligence, all the insights, all the knowledge, and provided the right kind of training with unbiased data, it'll
Mm.
become an expert in many more systems. But I think
So
the key thing over here is to avoid the bias.
yeah, I think that double click is great. Avoid the bias. AI is a teen right now, so it is going to do some things right. It is learning. It's going to get some things wrong. So be patient, just like you are with teens in general. What is the biggest trend in the industry that you are most excited for? You talked about the phase 2 and phase 3 earlier, and some of it is, you said, is even, farther out in future. What is, say, two or three trends that you're most excited about, and what is one or two things that you feel you're even concerned about?
Yeah. So the important trend that I'm particularly excited about is about AI agents and
Mm,
how AI agents are maturing in more ways. Right. The second one is about robotics. So that's
mm,
another one that I'm very excited about. And I think the combination of these two AI agents coming up with robotics would be a great way forward for us in many different ways. I had one of the founders of a company, Realbotics, and they make robots which are humanoids actually,
mm.
which takes care of elderly
Wow.
people or people who are all by themselves, right? So that's why it's helping people, right, avoid loneliness. So there are those examples, and then the AI agent by themselves, they could help with many healthcare situations. Again, robotics in healthcare, AI in healthcare, in education, in green energy. So those are the kind of things that I'm very excited about and looking forward to it, because I feel that with these kinds of examples and with these kinds of technological advancements, when we talk about solving the world hunger problem, which was like a thing that is out there and we can never achieve it, but those things seem to be possible? Are we still able to achieve world's hunger problem? Maybe not, but then we'll have far more access to education and good health in many parts of the world where people can only dream of but not have it. So that those are things that I'm very excited about. The second part of your question about what am I scared about is the security the part of it, right? The more things
Mm,
become digital, the more these things become very easily accessible to anybody and everybody, which means that even bad actors could have access
right.
to the same kind of technology. And we're already seeing it, Purnima. I mean, earlier there would be an email in your system, saying that, hey, send me $5,000, you're eligible for this, and you'll be able to earn $5 million, right? And there'll be multiple mistakes in that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
today, because of AI, they can write, Shakespeare in English if you wanted them
It's
to,
true.
uh,
True.
but but without any spell mistakes, and it's very easy
Yeah.
for people to get duped or cheated. And those are the simple examples that I'm describing. A friend of mine, he runs a company, and he was on our show called Sardine,
Hmm.
and they are into the fraud part, right? They prevent
I see.
financial fraud. And he has all kinds of examples of people cloning websites. So you could, for
Ah,
example, clone a website, Amazon. You are thinking as a user, that you're shopping on Amazon. You enter your credit card, your username and password details, but behind
ah.
the scenes, it's really a cloned website, and they have access to now your credit card information, username and password that they can easily hack into and do whatnot. So those are things that are becoming even more complicated than what they were today, and those are things that actually scare me.
Wow. I mean, like I went from here to here in like no time, which is yes, for all the, amazing advancements to healthcare, education, accessibility. That's such wow. And yes, this is very scary when you look at it. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah, and Purnima, more than that, right? I mean, just drones, for example. I mean, um, uh, drones are used for delivery of medicines. People are also talking about food delivery,
hmm,
but at the same time, drones can also deliver bombs, right?
mm,
So it's just the use that we could have of all these technologies, and if bad actors have access to the same sort of technology that are being used for all the good work, then imagine if we could have a negative access where all the bad things could potentially happen as well.
yeah. And I think that brings back to what you shared earlier, governance, and ethical usage practices are going to be so critical to what we are doing today. I mean, in some ways, in a kind of strangish but real way, Arun, as parents, you and I just think about this with our teens, right? While there are so many good things to the way they are growing, but there are so many scary things that we have to be
Yeah, yeah.
aware of, cautious about, the company they are in, the things they are doing. So, in some ways, to your point, there is some similarity between the two. So, excitement and be watchful. That's
Yeah.
amazing insight. And with that, we'll go into the fourth question. Arun, what are the 3 to 4 AI tools you can't live without today on a day to day basis?
Oh, that's easy. So
Yeah.
Perplexity is my number one. I use
Yeah.
Perplexity extensively. I use Gemini
Yeah.
extensively. Then I use Copilot as well in my work. And then for a lot of the editing work that we do on the channel, right, we use a tool called CapCut and Opus Pro. So Opus Pro lets us generate shorts from the YouTube videos. So there's a lot of those tools, and I can let more. But then, yeah, the top 3 or 5 that we use it on a regular basis.
Yeah. What are some of the tasks that you have, you become fully dependent on for, say, on Perplexity or Gemini, on a regular basis? If somebody is
A lot
looking to
of
start
research.
somewhere, what could those be?
Yeah, a lot of the research, depending
Mm,
on the kind of work that you do. For example, let's say if you're I can give a couple of examples. So let's say you're a
sure.
teacher, right, or you're in the profession of training and development, right? So if you could use Perplexity or any of these tools, Gemini or ChatGPT, any of these tools to create a whole lesson plan.
Yes.
If you're a parent helping a child do homework, you can take a picture of the homework. If you can't find out the answer yourself, you can take a picture of the question, upload it on Gemini or Perplexity, or not Perplexity, but ChatGPT, and they'll solve the problem right from there, from the picture itself, right?
Mm,
And they'll create the whole solution, explain it to you, and they can do things like that. If you are in the sales profession, there's so many research that you have to do, or if you're in the investing, there is so much of research that you have to do for the company that you're investing in or trying to implement solutions for, and you can do a whole bunch of research on the companies, um, rather than reading about it yourself. That's from Perplexity or Notebook LM. So very very exciting things that makes us even more productive.
Wow. No, I agree with you. And one of the things I saw more recently, and this was again going back to, Salman Khan, the educator, his book, there's a fear that if AI solves your homework, then what do you do? Right. But I think where we need to make the shift is the design. So instead of asking them to solve, how did you reach the solution? And I've seen some of the AI tools actually become so much more, conversational and actually asking those questions and empowering us to think higher, actually. Arun, the last and final question. Since you have amazing conversations with human beings on your podcast, um, actually, I'll make it a two-part. First part, if you could have dinner conversation with any fictional character or any historic figure, who would that be? Who would you invite on your podcast and would love to have a conversation with, and why?
The fictional character. Hmm.
Or
I
historic, or
or historic
historic.
character.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll choose a fictional character. So this is going back to my roots where I grew up in India, right? But I was always fascinated by the life of Lord Krishna.
Hmm.
Um, and if I ever could have the ability to invite, I would probably invite Lord Krishna to have lunch or dinner, some conversation with him. He is such a fascinating character, right? I mean, he could almost understand things. He would run away from a battlefield just to make sure that without doing much harm or without putting in much efforts himself, um, his soldiers are or his enemies are taken care of. Uh, in the war, he did not do anything. He was just there, and yet the war actually happened the way he wanted it to. So a fascinating
Yeah.
person, a fascinating character, one who had the foresight, the intelligence, and everything combined, right? So I would love to have a conversation with him.
And what would you ask Lord
You know,
Krishna if
I
you
would
had a
just want to
chance?
understand from him that how he does it. What are the kind of what kind of thought process? There's a chain of thought that goes on in everybody's mind, right? It's like playing a chess game. I say that, oh, Purnima is going to do this 5 things and I do this 6 things, so I can probably win or maybe be in a better place, right? So what kind of chain of thought that goes on in his mind? Just try to understand the chain of thought. I've always been fascinated by his chain of thought.
I see that in his, Bhagavad Gita, which is, all about the principles of life and leadership. And yes, there is so many leadership principles right in there. Arun, this has been so much fun. One last question, just curious. If you had to have a conversation with an AI, what would be the topic that you would like to discuss?
The good question. I would like to talk about how AI could help the world make the world more greener.
Hmm. And do you believe AI would have a great conversation on that topic with you?
I think so. I think so. There's still more learning that needs to be done, but I think that's a very good conversation. Something that needs to happen for everybody. We talk about food security, we talk about education security, about healthcare. Having that green energy is also something that we need to talk about. So I think that would be a great conversation to have with an AI agent.
I've had such a wonderful time learning about AI, leadership, planet, and so much more. And, to all those people who are listening to this, you can have more of Arun conversations on, AI with Arun Show. Do go and listen to these futuristic and current conversations. Thank you so much for taking the time for joining me here today.
Thank you, Purnima. It was an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.